The Big Sell Illuminati, where some of the best in the business discuss what's worked, what's working, and what's failed in selling big sales. Our panel of experts includes Clarity Seeker, a black belt of brands, our snarky marketer, Monique de Maio. CEO to CEO selling is his game. Fortune 500 in his lane. The Lex Luthor of the close, Mark Kennedy. The effective executive, a force on the boards, a buyer on fire, Tiffany Olson. David versus Goliath selling, the prince of process, Sun Tzu of big sales strategy, Tom Searcy. And that's your panel. Now it's time to talk about big sales.
Welcome everybody to the Big Sale Illuminati, where we break down everything about big sales. We have our panel here today. We have the snarky marketer, Monique de Maio. We also have our own closure, the king of that, right from Superman, Lex Luthor. And of course, we have the buyer on fire, Tiffany Olson. I'm Tom Searcy, the king of sales strategy for big sales. And we are going to talk about the time travel. We are going to go all the way forward 1 year to 2024. Think about 1 year from today. And what we really want to think about in that period is what's it going to be like? I mean, what is life going to be like for salespeople, and how are they going to be successful? So I'm going to throw that out. It's 1 year from now. Who wants to take first up?
For me, the trend is definitively a blend between technology and humanity. And what I mean by that is that we're going to be leveraging more automation, more technology, more ChatGPT, more AI and analytics. But at the same time, the buyer, and Tiffany can weigh in on this, is going to expect that we know more about them, that we are giving them that amazing customer experience, and that we're targeting their business for a reason, that we're not just, it's not going to be a mass sell anymore. We're not going to be sending out 10,000 emails to people anymore. We're going to know enough about our customer to know who to target and who our sweet spot customer is, but we better damn well show up prepared.
I would also say that I think that it will be the year of customer service. And knowing your customer. Throughout COVID, it was always poor customer service. Not being able to get products was always explained by, it's COVID. And we're still having poor customer service. Some of our supply chains still aren't back up, but it's hard now to still blame that on COVID. So I think, one, companies that have a process that the salespeople can actually be able to see, know what's being done on there, know when the product is going to be available for the customer. And part of that is going to be really, really important, because I see next year not as a revolutionary year, but kind of as an evolution that's occurring throughout all of the geopolitical and our own politics, which are going to occur hot and heavy next year, being able to make sure that as a salesperson, you can still get out there and win.
Yeah, I got to respond to that. I got to respond.
Yeah, he's got a smirk on his face, so he's about to say something.
A year of customer service, that's like the caricature dream of the big buyer. Everything is going to be service-oriented. My life is going to be so much better.
Listen, I want to say this. Next year is end times, all right? It's all over. And I'll tell you how I know. McDonald's is laying off people. When McDonald's is laying off people, you might as well check right to the back of the book on Revelation. There is no way. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to tank. Sales are going to go ahead and they're going to flatten out, because we're going to have what? We're going to have the recession is going to come on board. Everybody's already in a pucker mode of pulling people back in, not having as many people out working. Their travel and entertainment budgets are getting slashed. It is the year of the CFO. All right. So I'm going to take away all of the things I'd like to have. I'd like to have it be about customer service. I'd like to have it be about everything else. It's going to be about three things. It's going to be about the CFO. All right. It's going to be about save your life. All right. And it's going to be about save your customer. Now, saving your customer it doesn't embrace the idea of customer service, obviously. I mean, that's a part of it, but it becomes poacher's paradise. Everybody is looking to poach somebody else's customer who's already buying, and they're going to do unnatural acts. Be careful on this. Unnatural acts include the items like cutting prices below cost, going ahead and stripping out cost of transportation, the idea of taking away setup fees. And they're going to do that for a period. And that's going to last through probably, I'd say, the next 9 to 12 months. On the back end of that, everybody's going to wake up and say to themselves, oh my gosh, we got to grow. The board has, just like you said on the pandemic, they're only going to take it for so long. The economy is only going to have so long of a run. And then you're going to see, first of all, some salespeople being hired back, higher end, higher skill. There will be some transfer of what used to be outside sales to inside sales at a higher rate to accomplish that. But yeah, listen, I'm not afraid of saying it. All right. Everybody else wants to say, la, la, la. I'm telling you right now, we're screwed for 12 months. Get on with it.
So, Tom, I would love to be the controversial end of the pointy stick.
What does save your life mean?
Save your job.
I mean, save your life is as far as save your job.
Save your job.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but save your life is a little bit more exciting to say. Save your job. I'm telling you right now, the average will be thrown out on the street. The below average are probably on their way out right now. They would have gone and worked at McDonald's, except they're laying off.
You wise guy.
Now, you have to understand here, too, Tom's coin of realm is dramatic hyperbole and change. So Tom is a revolutionary, if not an outright terrorist. I have a different perspective.
Let's hear it, Mark.
I think what Mark Twain says, right? History rhymes, it doesn't repeat. So the question really is, what are the rhymes that are going on out there, right? What are the rhymes that are happening that are really reflections of what's happened in the last 2 or 3 years? But you have to spin some other things in. So as you know, we're all wrestling around with right now is what are the real big leading indicators of the economic environment they're going to be selling into? Because that really matters, right? So all those external forces. The first one is, I personally think we're going to be dealing with unicorns and rainbows. I really do. I think, but then again, we're all going to be replaced by ChatGPT. So it doesn't really matter. Technology. So your big forcing functions: technology, the interest rate environment, the labor shortage, geopolitics, and then if we can maybe keep perhaps the lab doors locked in Wuhan, we might not have another pandemic. So let's start with the technology. So I think the long-term ramifications for ChatGPT are going to be, and really large language model AI and generative AI in general, those are going to be profound and terrifying for sales. I think we've been experimenting a lot with tuning our own large language model, and to put it in a simplistic way, if you think about where the generative AI is right now, can you remember what was your very first cell phone? What was the first cell phone you owned? Was it the brick?
First one I owned was the brick.
You're a little bit older than me. My first cell phone was I think it was like one of those Motorola flip phones, right?
Flip phones, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Love that. I had the shoe phone, actually.
You had the what?
The shoe phone. Do you remember that? Agent 99?
I do, actually. I think that was on Maxwell Smart, Get Smart.
Yes.
Bingo.
That right there is a generational tell that everybody that works for my company looks at. Like, I keep dropping these references, and it's astonishing the number of people haven't even seen like Caddyshack. I'm like,
I know you can't. Dude, you can't. You say stripes, they don't get it. They're like, what?
no pop culture whatsoever. You can't leave. All the plants will die. That's a Stripes drop. Yeah, I think what's happening is it going to be akin to where you go from your first cell phone to the iPhone. What are you on, the 14 now? I think is what we've got here on the side. Oh, I just knocked it off the charger. Anyway, so I think that is going to have some profound implications on sales. It's just beginning to, I think, really get both broad adoption, but it's also something that everybody is talking about. I do sell into the marketing world. Every marketer right now wants to understand and know what generative AI, how you're using it, how are you using it to cut their cost, how you're using it in an authoritative and cited way. I mean, there's a lot going on right now that's certainly driving, the information I'm getting. And then what's ultimately happening in these big pictures are the access to data to custom tune these large language models are becoming the kind of, that's the front line of the war. And I know we're working on a partnership with an organization that has a lot of customer journey map information in terms of how people interact with content in the web, and we're tuning that with a language model around what we have from search insights, and it's some kind of really remarkable stuff. So I think that's a biggie. I think the interest rate environment is going to affect everybody. I don't think the Fed wants to go back to a situation where they only have one lever, which was quantitative easing. I think they want to be able to take rates up and down and have more bidirectional control. That changes everybody's, when the risk-free rate goes up into the 5, 6, 7% range, it changes everybody's capital allocation models. So I think that environment is going to continue. I don't see the Fed backing down too much in that area. Everything I guess, like labor shortage is a big external factor, right? That's affecting sales. Could you imagine, to your point about McDonald's laying off people? Why are they doing that? It's because people are selling their new kiosks. You order in a McDonald's, there's nobody there. They basically walk out and hand you your food, but you never interact with another human being. And if you order off the app, you don't even really do that. So I think that's a big one. I mean, geopolitics, the Russia-Ukraine battle can't go on forever. That's going to end. But I mean, the real question is, are we, the U.S., going to trip over China in the South China Sea? That's going to be a mess. If it happens, that changes the entire dynamic, right?
I think one of the things as I listen to everyone is, if I'm a salesperson, what do I really need to make sure that I'm prepared for going into 2024? And I really believe that there will never be a shortage for well-trained, really good salespeople. That is a market that companies still need. So I think making sure that your skills are transferable, and the transferable skills might not be industry specific, but they are sales specific. They're how you open, how you probe, how you close, how you can interact, the relationships that you can build. And those are the valuable people. And even though there are a lot of layoffs occurring, there are companies that are hiring. So even though McDonald's may be laying off, Chick-fil-A is hiring. So transferable skills. And I think that that's really the key for, if you're nervous about what's going to happen next year for your job specifically, start looking at what you need to do or to strengthen when it comes to, I think, having really solid sales skills.
I'd pile onto that for sure. I think the two things I would highlight in that, what you just said there, Tiffany, is number one is preparation. Like, are you prepared for the meetings that you're about to get or that you get? Because the meetings are in short supply. So the preparation, so that you're bringing the insights into those meetings, is huge. And the second thing is, I have a group of like sales pros that I hang out with from time to time, and I'll bring them into like meetings with my younger salespeople that I'm bringing up. And I'll just ask dumb questions like, what's the most effective thing you've done? Or how do you teach, what are you teaching new salespeople? The one thing that comes up over and over that is too easy to discount is just the quality of follow-up. I have a buddy that says, if you just simply follow up on what you say you're going to do, you're probably going to be successful, no matter how bad the rest of what you do may be. So it's, I think prep and follow up are just absolutely fundamental essentials in this type of market.
Monique, let me ask you a question. How does marketing then wind up filling in some of the space in this? We're 12 months from now. All right. Sales has maybe compressed a little bit. Some marketplace things have changed, and et cetera. How does marketing kind of swing into that?
I think the answer is they're still doing what the old model was doing, which is trying to fill the funnel with leads. And the question is, are they the right leads? Are they the right profile? And I think that that's what I'm saying in terms of my answer is, as we go, it's not a revolution. Like Tiffany said, it's an evolution. But the more data we are able to leverage in our analytics, the more that story has to change. The story is not mass marketing anymore. I mean, these massive campaigns, my clients are doing thousands and thousands of email drip campaigns to people I already know those not the right people.
Yeah.
That's got to stop, because people they're now, no one's paying attention, right? So the expectation is, if you're a buyer, you're like, oh geez, another freaking 26,000 emails in my inbox, delete. Like, what's going to break through? So I think the answer, not the answer, but the marketers are like, what are we going to create that's going to break through this ridiculous clutter, which used to be mail, now is email, now is like, what's the next?
Interruption marketing doesn't work. You've got to own your assets.
I think that obviously my company talks to an awful lot of salespeople. We've spent the last year writing a book, The Secret to Big Sales, and so that'll be coming out here in a month or two. But
Wait, there's a secret?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you right now. It's a secret that I've been trying to tell everybody, which is to hire my company. That was my secret. Okay, but the second secret, of course, to this is to get a good people that include marketers, buyers, and strong thinkers to the future. God, it's so hard to kiss this much ass in the same freaking podcast here. Now, here's the thing. I want to bounce off of both a number of things that have been said, and that is that the salespeople that are out there, how do I say this? The dumb will get damaged. All right, dumb salespeople will get damaged. And when I say dumb, dumb means those people who have only followed the processes in the past. They're not relevant to the current issues that are going on, and they can't take their customers to the future. How do you get a good first non-interruptive approach to getting a meeting? You offer value. You offer insight. You can't just say, "Hey, a friend of mine referred me over to you. Thought it'd be good for us to have a meeting, kind of figure out how we might work together." And the other person's like, "I'm sorry, we can set that meeting. It's great that Sue set us up together and etc. Let's do that, say in the fall," because they don't have time for that. You have to show those insights, which means you have to have the preparation, which means that all of that has to be very specific to that company. They don't want to hear about the industry. They want to hear about their company in the industry.
Yeah, but I think that's back to leveraging the technologies and the insights that companies are now able to get on behalf of their customer base and on behalf of their salespeople. If their salespeople are not proactively using that data, which typically they don't, it's just outbound stuff. You're not going to create that value, and the customers are not going to receive that value. And honestly, your salespeople are never going to be invited in.
You're right. I mean, you have to be walking in truly with bags of money in your hand as far as efficiencies or revenue increase or improvement in velocity or those kinds of things. They have to see that inside of the offering very early in the conversation. I will tell you this much. I talk to a lot of salespeople that are out there. They're skittish. They're very skittish. They're trying to ask themselves the question, hey, should I stay with the company I'm in right now? Should I jump companies? Should I jump industries? Should I get out of sales altogether? Salespeople are there in many cases, and I mean this with respect to a degree, and that's mercenaries. They are, when I say that, is they follow those opportunities that think that will best benefit them because their skills will transfer. That's what I'm hearing as far as that. What makes a sales is a good option a year from now instead of going into this very skittish approach?
Well, first off, salespeople sell. That's the first thing. And if that's who you are and what you do, that is what you do. I think salespeople probably have more options than they realize because the ability to influence is the ability to sell, and that's the ability to do a lot of different things. Salespeople have the ability to start their own businesses because if you can sell, all else follows, right? I mean, bankers love contracts. So I think that gives them more options than they think. What I've seen is salespeople tend to do maybe the equivalent of what it's like to have a book of insurance customers where they basically renew. So you build up this base of relationships and then you ride those relationships on renewals all the way to celebrate Masters Week, which actually kicks off this morning.
Love it.
So me too. It's a great week. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year. But what I mean so the analogy there then is I see salespeople develop key relationships that they ride through numerous organizations throughout their career. So the classic as a guy who spent most of his formative adult life in Cincinnati, Ohio, is there are people that do nothing but sell to Procter & Gamble, and they do that as a vehicle through multiple different companies. I think, knowing and understanding what it is that you really do and developing that as a strategy as a salesperson, I think that's important. And it's also as somebody who hires salespeople. I mean, good Lord, finding out, how those people are wired and if they have the strategy and what are those relationships that you really need to get to. I think that's the big thing for salespeople, which is developing kind of, for lack of a better term, their relationship base or their capital base for how they actually get to market. Because people are going to do what's familiar to them. People tend not to get too far outside their comfort zones. And once they develop a kind of those base sets of relationships, I see that as sort of the question is, and I think for them, the ultimate question is, to whom are those relationships the most valuable? That's probably where that goes.
If you follow my perspective on that, that's all well and good, except it's going to be the year of the CFO. And if it's the year of the CFO to any particular degree, relationships will be hedged against what the CFO says to some degree or not. And I'm going to turn this over because I could see Mark's head's going, no, it's not. But I'm going to tell you, it's not like that at all. I'm telling you, it's all about relationships. And so gently, I go ahead and move over to the buyer on fire. And I say, hey, listen, you're in the boardrooms right now. They're looking at 2004, 5, and 6 as far as their planning and et cetera. You can tell us, it's just the 4 of us, okay? You can go behind the curtain. What is the budgeting changes that you're seeing for the next 2 or 3 years?
So one, seriously, if your company is looking for growth, then you are making those investments in your growth models. You may tweak some others, but your growth products, you are still going to make investments in those. And investments mean investments in sales, investments in marketing, because those expectations aren't changing. They aren't changing at all. Maybe other areas of the business, if you think they're going to slow down, you're going to carve back a little bit. But for those growth areas, they need growth. And I'll tell you what, almost every company that I'm involved in is looking for good salespeople. And so if you are a salesperson, again, that can prove transferable skills even into a different industry. Now, I had a guy who worked for me. I was looking for a sales position, and he was in insurance. I was in medical. But what he was able to do is show that he could probe, he could develop relationships, and he could close, and he had hustle. And he transferred very easily, became one of the best of the medical sales reps. So look for those growth areas because they're still going to be out there throughout all of the things that we've talked about in this uncertainty. There are growth areas. So if you feel that you are not in one of those growth areas and you're really, really concerned, look for those growth areas and take those skills with you because people want those skills.
Let's push to that. Let's push into that for just a second. I'd like to hear this kind of around the horn. Let's start with you, Monique. I just want to know 3 skills that you have to have that are transferable because we're talking kind of some general pieces, which I get, but I'd like somebody who's listening to this to do a quick inventory. It says on 1 to 10 basis, I'm at this level. Now, if you're a salesperson, you're pathologically optimistic. So you're going to say to yourself, I'm at a 10 in all 3 of these. But what are the 3 that you would look for? And Tiffany just hit one of them, of course. And it sounds silly, but close. You have to be able to close.
You have to be. So I think, we kind of said it in different ways. One is the showing up, and I don't mean showing up like showing up to the office in front of your computer, but showing up fully and prepared at all times for all things, internal meetings, external meetings. Just do your goddamn homework. Like, I'm so tired of lazy salespeople. I just can't deal. I just cannot deal with lazy salespeople. Lazy, it's just no way to go through life. You show up. Well, my expectation is that you're prepared. You're going to do some level of research on your prospect, figure out if that's a good person to go after. And if it is, you're going to go at it with value. Find something out that they may or may not know, or give them a perspective or something from your lens that they may not have. Share that with them. Allow yourself to enter into the room as the smart salesperson, not the dumb salesperson. Because I used to get annoyed when people classified me as a salesperson. I was a publisher of a magazine. So technically I sold media. But if you called me a salesperson in those days and in my head, there was a negative connotation because the rest of sales was ill prepared and ill read. So if you show up well read, well prepared, well spoken, well dressed, I might add, let's put that in the equation. It's like I was talking to somebody yesterday. I don't know if you've ever heard of her name, Cara Jane Searcy Moore. I don't know. She might ring a bell too.
She's actually kind of a legend.
We're talking about, training younger women have, the same issue, whatever. The point is, you got to know what you're selling. You show up looking a certain way, you're going to make a statement that you're selling something other than what you're selling.
The most talented Searcy finally makes the podcast.
Yeah, no doubt. And by the way, that last one was such a softball. I can't believe Kennedy didn't pick it up, your last comment.
I know. I just lobbed that right in there.
You did. You lobbed that right in there. So, Mark, what would you throw out there?
I got your 3. So, of course, I agree with the language. You get sent to whom you talk like. I got 3: qualify, prepare, and follow up. I think deals get closed and won at the beginning, not the end. I think qualification and really, really qualifying the problem and qualifying the desire to solve the problem, for me, has always been the winning strategy. Most of my deals close in the first, if not the first meeting, the second meeting. From that point forward, it's 100% follow-up and preparation. So everything that you do is preparing the business case for the outcome that you're driving towards and the solution that you're ultimately going to support that outcome. And then the last one is just pure discipline follow-up, staying on top of the process. That's what happens. My whole career has been focused on selling to relatively ginormous companies, Fortune 50, Fortune 500, but also from the frame of reference of I've always been relatively small selling to relatively ginormous. And in that capacity, it's just they don't get sold as much as they buy. And the strategy of the salesperson needs to be to figure out how to put what you sell into how they buy. And when that happens, you can make magic. And
you threw something really important there, and that is I think what you said was I sell in the first 1 or 2 meetings. They get sold, and the process from that point forward. If you've got a 60-day process from that, it's called a sales process. It should be renamed a buying process.
Yep.
It's all the things that have to be changed on everybody's side, peer to peer, to get ready. But in the first meeting or 2, you've secured this executive sponsor who has the problem, sees that you are the solution, and says, okay, now let's get everybody else on the teams to go ahead and make this work. But I believe it and I want it.
For big business selling, I don't know if you said it or someone said it once, but they say, show the chain and sell the first link.
You got a bunch of them today. This is good.
We're going to start calling them Markisms. We should start a handout.
That's right, the Markisms.
So, Tom, I would say that I agree with what everybody said, but the one that I would add would be hustle. You have to have somebody, and I think it goes into showing up every day and being prepared, but you got to have someone that can just hustle and get out there and keep going every day.
We've had great luck hiring on your hustle point. Tiffany is a good one. We hire college athletes, and I'm a former college athlete a long time ago, and I've got a couple on our team now that their competitiveness in the process and their competitiveness to win has really it pushes when things get bogged down. It's that level of enthusiasm and energy that really creates the push sometimes to keep things moving, because there is a lot of inertia towards not moving forward in big organizations, and I think that's an undervalued skill for salespeople. That's a good point.
Can I ask a question? Because this is more of a probing question. Do you think that because they were also college athletes, typically in a team environment, that they also play nicer in the sandbox with others?
No, actually, I don't. I think if you're a college athlete and you're used to being on a team, you're used to fighting like hell with the people right in front of you. But I think that's good. I think that's the competitiveness in the team dynamic. I always tell our account people, which in my world, account people are sort of salespeople, but they're not really. They're like I want them to be the canary in the coal mine. So when our customer, I want them raising hell internally, because I want to hear it from them. I don't want to hear it from my real customer, right? If we're about to make a mistake, I want my account team losing their shit. I don't want to hear it from my customer. I don't ever want it to get there. So when I don't hear from people like that, that's why I like people that are combative and difficult in those type of client leading roles. And ultimately sales come from those types of relationship builders, whether or not those are the people that are driving the sales process. They're the ones that are driving the growth in relationships.
I want to bounce in on Mark's statement about college athletes. I have a different take on it, and that is in whether it's in high school or in college, they have to have been a winner at something. I don't care if it's chess. I don't care if it's a college, whatever it is, they have to have, because I'm going to tell you right now, winning has a flavor. And if you like that flavor, then you will always seek out that flavor. And if your answer is well, we had a lot of fun, we worked really hard, we didn't have a great team, but da 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 da. My answer is that you figured out that losing has a flavor, and you're willing to put up with it.
Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser.
Right. Right. So if you believe, in our interviews, the processes that we teach people, that's one of the things that we said. Tell me something over the course of time that you were a winner at, and I don't care what it was, because they have to have some pride and some resilience. All these other things come into play. One of the best people that I had as a manager was a chess player. All right. Now, he was one of those uber smart people and etc. But he was great at the process because he could look forward and say, what are the issues that we're going to have along the way? But he hated to lose. He was, as Mark put it so eloquently, he was aggressive in getting towards that idea. Well, we're still out in the future. It's a year from now. And there's still maybe that belief that something's around the corner. How do you calm down your customers? And how do you calm down if you're leading sales teams? How do you calm them down from being, and because I hear this out there in the marketplace, well, recession's coming. What happens with another pandemic? My clients right now are really holding back. They're tightening up their, whatever. And so how do you get them to calm all of those things down? How do you teach them to be capable of that? Who wants it first? I can see a couple of people that are like, I hope he calls on someone else first.
Well, if that's the case, I'll take it, because I think the more uncertain the world, the market becomes, the more certainties, if you can provide them, really prevail. So whatever that certainty is, that you're going to have your product, that you aren't going to do layoffs, that the budget will be reasonable, any kind of certainty. And I think the communication with those is so important. And I think also that goes with when you're selling. So if there is the value or the date or the reduction in risk, whatever that may be, that you need to provide to your customer, the more certainty of that, the better it is, because that's what people are looking for.
What about opportunity costs? Like, okay, there's going to be a recession. Okay, shit's going to hit the fan. Okay, you still have to sell your services. You still have to make payroll. You still have to keep the doors open. Like, what do you want? Do you want to go and put your head in the sand and come back up when it's all peaches and cream and what is it? Puppies and rainbows, or whatever that expression is?
Unicorns. Don't forget the
Yeah,
unicorns.
whatever. You can't wait till the environment is perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And not doing anything, inertia can take over, and not doing anything will put you further behind the eight ball. So I think the story can also incorporate some level of opportunity cost of doing nothing.
Right. I had an email conversation last night from a guy I've known for a long time who's selling, he's a distributor of wire. All right. Now we all know wire is basically a commodity. All right. And he's sexy. So softball distributor, but he's a distributor, and he's trying to figure out he's got the biggest deal he's ever had, and he's selling into a particular building who's going to blah, 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 whatever. The issue, he said, well, how do I go sell this? And it really goes to the things that you guys are saying. Number one is, as I said, walk in there and carry in what your failure to deliver rate was during the pandemic. And he said, well, we were really lucky we had an inventory. I said, no, you weren't lucky. You planned it well. So I said, show that, first of all, during that period of time, your ability to deliver was anywhere over 95%. Secondly, show that the amount of inventory you will maintain for this project throughout its duration, so that they've always got a fallback on that particular issue. Bring in the manufacturer of the wire, even though you're a distributor, so you can explain to them how they're going to keep their plants up and going. I said, but for God's sake, do not sell wire.
Well, you're selling certainty of the product.
Exactly.
You're selling, in essence, we're all looking to sell it. They're all looking to buy insurance, right? The insurance that nothing is going to tank, insurance that nothing is going to, you know, go out of business, insurance that they're not going to be fired tomorrow. It's sort of tangential to what Tiffany was saying before.
Well, it's interesting because what happens is that the commodities become more of a larger and complex sale around the idea of the commodity. The commodity is now who cares about the commodity? What are all the other things that, as you said, provide insurance?
We should put a pin in this, Tom, because I think the people that are in sales and to some extent marketing that are listening to this podcast, hopefully get that the takeaway is even if you are selling a commodity, make sure you don't sell that commodity.
I do want to drop back to the point that was made before about the three things that everybody needs to have. I don't know if I've told you about this. Online, there's a little speech that Tom Hanks gave. And in a Tom Hanks speech, they were asking, he said, let me advise you what you need to do. He said, somebody told me this early on. I got yelled at about it. And he said, a director yelled at me in my career early on because we'd been out drinking too much the night before. We showed up late. He says, your job is to show up on time. He said, secondly, know your lines, not just your lines, but the entire script, all the things that are going on with all the other characters. That's your second part of your job. And the third thing is come with a head full of ideas. I thought that advice should be staple gunned onto the head of every new sales rep. Do those three things. And inside of large sales, you'll have a lot because everything that's been said here right now, show up professionally. Secondly, be ridiculously well prepared. And third, understand what the broader context is of that particular customer's world. I think Hanks was right. So that was my piece of the three things that you need to have. Although I really liked a lot of the other ones, especially the idea of knowing how to close.
And Tom, I think that story also just goes to like my password of the day, which is transferability. Because regardless of the industry, and if one industry during the next year starts really going down, go to a growth industry then. Go to one that's growing.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of wrap up with this particular question because the people that are listening to this are the kinds of people that are hungry for good ideas and places to get better. And the ones who aren't probably aren't even listening to this podcast, so it doesn't matter. What's the best resources that anybody's been seeing lately, either articles or blogs or podcasts or meetings or conferences that you've been at that you think has the best handle on looking forward and being prepared and better here in the near future? So is there anybody out there that you would say, go listen to this person or go see that kind of content that's out there? I'm a huge fan of the All In podcast, have been for a long time right now. Very forward looking, still pretty high on the macroeconomic level, but it does give you a picture of a variety of things across geopolitical and financial and the Fed and technology and all the rest of those kinds of things. I play it at 1.25 because, otherwise you'll never get through it. I played Joe Rogan at 4.0, and so far I haven't. It sounds just like a buzz in my head, like, and it's just about right.
My best is the Economist magazine.
Yes.
Depth of what's going on, the deep why economically behind the issues. I think they do an amazing job. It's maybe the last bastion of amazing journalism that's left. Some of the other stuff, I like Scott Galloway a lot. I think he's got his arms around things pretty well. He's a guy who's got his feet under him. I like Jim Stengel's CMO podcast. That's another good. Stengel does an amazing job. And day in, day out, my trash input's the Wall Street Journal.
Well, one of the things, that hasn't been mentioned, I love the Harvard Business Review, and I subscribe. They have daily management tips if you're a manager. And what I like about them is that they're very relevant, especially I think toward the younger professionals. And so it provides just for me kind of a little bit different outlook. I can put my own spin. They tend to be a little bit academic. And I'm definitely a realist, so I can kind of combine those two. So that's something that I love.
Boy, there's people out there that to your point, I'm recommending either start to blog more, podcast more, or whatever, because there's a lot There are a lot of smart people out there that are kind of they fly underneath the radar, that have good advice and good stories to tell to help you, but they're just heads down. So I'm encouraging people that I think, I've got a lot of respect for, to put some of that information out. Monique, bring us home. Who are you thinking about?
Well, I think Neil, further down into the funnel of sales and marketing, I think Neil Patel has a good handle on things, and I think in terms of sales conferences or things where you're going to get practical day-to-day tactical execution advice, because we didn't talk about that, and I think we probably need to. There's the Sales 3.0 conference and the HubSpot Inbound conferences that are both pretty well respected and provide some net takeaways for people that are in the trenches. So those are both, I think, happening in September, one in Vegas, and I don't remember the other one, but so those are the three, I think, more granular examples of good.
HubSpot's got amazing content. They've taken a really interesting strategy around how to create thought leadership in a given marketing space, and doing it with great content to sell their product. It's pretty remarkable.
Yes, HubSpot sponsors one of my friends. He's got a podcast called The Salesman. I don't know how he got that first. He does it out of Britain, but he got HubSpot sponsors him and distributes his content. Really good at it. I would also advocate him. He's good. Well, this has been a great episode, and I want to thank everybody for being here and everybody who listens. As we always say, right? Like and subscribe and share with others. Thank you. Anyway, thank you, everybody, and best wishes on all of your biggest sales.
Thanks for listening to the Big Sale Illuminati podcast. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Until our next episode, best wishes on your big sales.